My name is Kevin Joyce. I'm the producing director for Enjoy Productions, one of the sponsors of the show, and delighted to welcome you all to the visionary stage. You're in the right place because you are all visionary. That was said with so little enthusiasm. Because you are all
visionary.
That's exactly right. Well done, everybody. I'm actually here to introduce the person who's going to introduce our next presenter, Sharon Andrade. And this is a person who works for an organization that is critical to meetings around the country, critical to best practices, and an organization that's dear to my heart because I was part of when they came to Seattle almost in the late part of the 20th century. So please welcome to the stage from PCMA, Laura Daniel.
Forgot my printout, so I could fake this. I've known Sharon for over 30 years. She is a past boss of mine. So Sharon has been leading and transforming teams for over 30 years in the events and hospitality industry. She partners with the Effectiveness Institute, where she was previously the Director of Business Development for 8 years. She's worked with clients across industries from banking, tech, retail, hospitality, to improve performance through people. I've been through a few of those classes with her. As a certified people skills as Sharon is certified people skills leveraging team dynamics and teams with work facilitator. She also helps teams prepare for and navigate change based on the William Bridges transition model. So basically, Sharon was on the hotel side for a long time. And last year, she left Pineapple Hospitality, where she was the VP of sales. She was also sales and marketing for Hilton Hotels. She had a leadership role with American Express, and she's gone out on her own. She is a great presenter. She knows a lot. If you have a team, you need some help, hire Sharon, because she will help your team get to the next level. So I'm pleased to present Sharon Andrade.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I am going to have to start paying her. She's one of, as we've known each other for a long time. So thanks for being here. Managing in times of change. So the pandemic accelerated innovation in the events industry at a rate that would have taken years to catch up if it didn't happen, right? We're still trying to figure out some of the stuff. We're still trying to sort through all of the changes. And we're also poised for growth. So Industry Partners predicts, which is a research firm, predicts that the events industry will grow from its current $958 billion global value, almost $1 trillion, between 2022 and 2028 to a total of almost $2 trillion. That's an 11.1% annual growth rate per year. So what does that mean for you and all of us? It means there has never been a better time to thrive and grow in the events industry. And that means thrive through the changes that were forced upon us, like the pandemic, thrive through the changes that we don't even know about yet, and thriving through the changes that we initiate ourselves. So rather than calling this managing through times of change, I like to say, let's thrive in chaos, right? Because chaos is here to stay. So has it felt a little chaotic the last couple of years? Oh yeah, it has. And are we thriving or are we just surviving? Sometimes we want to just get back to the way it was before the pandemic, don't we? Yeah, we do. So some of the challenges that the pandemic brought about. Does this sound familiar to anybody? The staffing shortage is still a thing that we're all dealing with, right? And we will use the example of the pandemic throughout the presentation. The reason why is it's something that we all went through. We all experienced the pandemic, and it changes from it at various levels. So also during the pandemic, some of us had time to pause and say, how did I get here? Am I in the right place? Some of us had time to think about that because we were unemployed for a period of time, right? So that time to be introspective. And during that time, did we think, we might have taken some LinkedIn learning courses. That became a thing, LinkedIn learning. Or we did everything we could to keep ourselves busy while we waited for our jobs to come back. Or we took the first thing that was put in front of us as the next job opportunity. Or we prepared ourselves for a new path. What I'm going to say to you today is it's never too late to ask yourself these questions. How did I get here? And am I in the right place? Because we want to thrive. We want to thrive. Or at least I do. Does anybody else want to thrive? You want to grow vigorously. You want to flourish. You want to progress toward or realize a goal despite or because of circumstances. So for the next 45 minutes or so, I want you to take time to be introspective, to understand, kind of discover and leverage your strengths, to learn how to use this thing called transition to model through change so that you can get through change more successfully. And then at the end of the day, or at the end of the 45 minutes anyway, you'll be able to take a growth plan away that you can implement on your own. So, where do you begin? Where do you begin? So when change happens, it's an opportunity for you to change. And the best way to understand how to change or what to do is to understand what your strengths are. Where do you begin? Now, according to Marcus Buckingham, author of First Break All the Rules, which was kind of groundbreaking research that he partnered with a Gallup organization on. And we heard it from the previous presenter here. His advice to managers is, people don't change that much. So instead of trying to put in them what's not there, why don't you try pulling out of them what's in there? That's their strength. So my question is, what's in you? So in discovering your strengths, what we also know is that if we take time and really focusing on developing our strengths, we can grow exponentially. There's no limit to our growth. And what we also know is that we don't want to spend time putting things in us that aren't there. So did anybody hear the phrase, oh, you can be anything you want to be when you grow up, honey, from your mom, from your teacher? If you look at it from a strengths perspective, you cannot be anything that you want to be, but you can be more of who you are. So when we look at strengths, what is a strength anyway, right? How do we know what our strengths are? Well, a strength is not necessarily something that you're good at, just like a weakness is not necessarily something that you're bad at. The way we want to look at strengths is that when you do it, you want to do more of it, you want to get better at it, it gives you energy, it pumps you up. Whereas a weakness is like, oh, I really hate doing that. I'm actually pretty good at it, but I really hate it. So an example would be, so I took up golf this last summer, and I'm bad at it. Did you guys know that actually golf handicaps go up to 34, 38? I didn't know until I started golfing. So, but it gives me energy, and I want to get better at it. So I look at it as it can become a strength. And I have some natural ability, and ultimately my goal is to beat my fiance, Jack. So he's got to be on the lookout. So whereas a weakness is something that you could be good at it, right? So when, developing budgets for events, developing budgets for your team or your organization, or in the case of like proofreading a paper, those are all things that, yeah, we're good at it, but do we love it? I don't. So that's one way to look at strengths, is what gives you energy? What gives you strength? What fills up your tank? What moves the needle from empty to full? What do you want to do more of? So building up on the strength and maximizing it and becoming a better version of yourself is what we want to focus on. So rather than trying to fix those things that you're not good at, because what we know is that you can grow exponentially by developing your strengths instead of fixing your weaknesses. And performance reviews, the performance review. Oh, you're really good at this. Oh, you do great at that. You really do well at this. However, you got to fix this and this and this. Do you? Are those things that you have to fix? Do they give you energy? No, right. They're things you have to do, and maybe you have to do them as part of your job, but don't spend time getting good at them. Spend time getting good at the things you're already doing really well, and or evaluate the job that you have and whether your strength actually matches that job, especially during times of change. We want to understand our strengths and how we can leverage them to be better. So let's talk about change a little bit. Does change give you energy? So we talk about strengths and how strengths can give us energy. When change happens, does it give you energy? We look at the Effectiveness Institute at two different kinds of preferences around environment. One of them is that some people in this room prefer a stable environment. Now, if you prefer a stable environment, that means you set up routines to keep everything stable. Don't rock the boat. I'm going to get up at the same time every day. I'm going to drink my cup of coffee the same way every day. I'm not going to put cream in it if I don't put cream in it. And I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to drive to work the same way every day. I'm going to get to the parking garage. I'm going to park, if you are not working remote, this is. I'm going to park in the parking garage in the same parking place every day. And I'm going to go up and I'm going to start my day. And oh, it's a great day. Everything went really smooth. No hiccups. So that's the side that prefers stable. Now, if you don't prefer stable, you might prefer a dynamic environment. That means you might get up at 6 a.m. one day because you got a good night's sleep, and you might sleep in until 9 a.m. the next day. It means that you might be feeling like coffee with cream one day, and you might be feeling like a Coke the next day. It means that, what should I wear today? You didn't think about it the night before. You're thinking about it right now. You get in your car, you probably use Waze to figure out which way you're going to go to work. And when you get to the parking garage, you park in the stable person's parking lot or parking space just to piss them off. So we all have a preference, right? So we all know that we work in stable environments, and we all know that we have to shift to dynamic environments, but we have a preference. So I want you to keep this in mind as we go through and talk about change. Another way we look at energy from the Effectiveness Institute is that we either get energy in our work from what you are working on, task, completing the task at hand. You're like, yeah, that's good. Or you get energy from relationships. If you get energy from relationships, that means you don't necessarily get energy from the thing you're working on, you get it from the people you're working with to complete the task. So task or relation. You have a preference for one of those. The other preference you have is you have a preference for either initiating energy, meaning I love it when I get to brainstorm and I get to think of new ideas and I get to make decisions real quickly. Or you have energy for implementing, meaning like, oh my gosh, they come up with so many ideas over there. Let me see if I could take one and actually make it happen by putting processes and procedures and things in place. So you have energy for implementing. And when you do things that around implementation, it gives you energy. It makes you feel great about your job. So you each have a preference for either task, relation, initiate, or implement. Let's look at that a little bit further. If you like to check off your list, oh, that's a great day. Or if you like to dig into a spreadsheet, the thing that I was talking about I don't like doing. Or if you like to complete a project, you feel like you've had a great day when you complete a project. Or maybe playing a game of solitaire. That could be task energy. If you like having a great conversation, gives you energy. If you like working on a team project, not by yourself. If you get energy from appreciation and praise, or if you like playing a nice game of beer pong with your friends, always being around people, that means that you get your energy more from relationships. Initiate, you generate those ideas, you think big picture, you're thinking way down the road, you're not thinking in the moment, and you're gonna make sure it gets done. Get her done. Implementing energy is more about somebody else can initiate. I'm going to take their idea and I'm going to make it happen. We're going to make sure it actually happens, this idea of yours, and we're going to put processes and procedures in place. And we are going to make sure it gets done right. Now, if you're in the events industry and on the planning side of events industry, you have to have energy for implementing, right? Otherwise, the event would be a disaster. But keep in mind what gives you energy. and because it will help you understand where you should be in your role and also how you can navigate most effectively through change. So I want you to take a minute and turn to the person next to you. And I want you to talk about, do you get energy from task or relationship? Or do you get energy from initiating or implementing? So you get task or relation energy, initiate or implement. I'm going to give you 1 minute to go ahead and just think about that and tell your neighbor. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back. So we know that we can do all of it, right? We all can do tasks, and we can all do relationship, we can all implement, and we can all initiate. But the important thing is to pay attention to is what gives you energy. One of them seems to take more energy from you, and one of them you seem to get more energy from, right? So that's one part of understanding your strengths, is understanding what gives you energy. The next part is to understand your skills and abilities. When have you found the most success? Think about what you've done when you found the most success. What have you been the most proud of in your work? Look back. What have you been the most proud of? And what challenges did you overcome, and how did you do it? So when we think about skills and abilities and how they might apply, we think, well, I'm really creative, and creativity is a strength of mine. It's a great skill, and I should be an artist or a dancer. Well, creativity can also be used to solve complex problems, right? Creativity can be a strength that can have multiple facets. So even though you think you should be an artist, or maybe that's one outlet for you, you can take that creativity as a strength and apply it in the work by being creative with problem solving and business issues. So it's more than about just face value. So there is a strengths exercise that you can do. I would challenge you to do this. Take a journal or a piece of paper and pay attention to what gives you energy. It could be a work or personal, like I used golf as an example. And rate on a scale of 1 to 10 your emotions, your enjoyment, and your energy level. And note the strength that you're using in the activity from a skill standpoint, from an energy standpoint, and it will help inform you. Because we kind of think we know, but when we're actually doing something that gives us energy or not, it's even more conscious. We become more conscious of it. So what is necessary to change a person is to change awareness of him or herself, is a famous quote by Abraham Maslow, who is a positive psychology grandfather. So in order to develop your strengths, you have to become introspective and pay attention to what they are. So here's a couple of tools also that are out there for free. So Marcus Buckingham has Standout 2.0. It's an assessment you can take online that will kind of help you discover your strengths from one perspective. And then Clifton Strength Finder is from the Gallup organization, and it looks like it's a lot more complicated, I would say, because they look at 34 different types of strengths. And yes?
Can the Strength Finder change?
Yes, absolutely, yes. So and all of those things, your energy and how you do work, and a lot of the information I just shared with you is based upon a behavior style model from the Effectiveness Institute. And with that, we change based upon the situation that we're in, right? And maybe our job has changed or something is happening in our family or in our life. So we understand our strengths. We're understanding our strengths, and now Change has happened, and when change has happened, it's an opportunity for you to change. And so where do you go? How do you decide where to grow? Does anybody know who Cindy Novotny is? Yeah. Okay, Cindy Novotny is kind of a guru in the sales industry, hospitality industry. And a lot of times when change happens, what do we want to do? I'm just going to quit. I can't take it. If they do that change, I'm for sure out of here, right? But instead of joining the great resignation, join the great reshuffle and reconnection. So what do you need to change in your current position to be more valuable to your family, company, clients, and coworkers? So what that says is, instead of quitting, think about growing. And what can you do to grow in place? You don't have to leave. You can take inventory of your strengths and grow in place. So growing through change. When change happens, do we have control over it? Change happens with or without our consent, right? Change is inevitable. Growth is optional, from John Maxwell. Change happens without our consent, but does growth happen? Only with our consent. Growth is something that we have to choose, right? It's not going to happen. It's not just going to go poof, all of a sudden we're better at something. And all of a sudden we can get through change more easily. So change is inevitable, growth is optional. So what is change? Change is an event that when something stops or something new starts. It happens outside of us, right? It's not happening in here. It's happening, the pandemic was way out here. It takes place at a particular point in time, right? The pandemic, does anybody remember the exact dates? March of 2020 is when it hit here. Yeah, yep, exactly. So, oh yes, today, good point. Yeah, 3 years ago, whew. So, it happens outside of us, and it takes place at a particular point in time. And it can be perceived as life-changing or insignificant. We go through small changes all of the time, right? Or it can be positive or difficult. Now, the pandemic was one sort of change, but we've been through so many others. There's, and that there are so many more to come. ChatGPT. There's been a lot of layoffs lately, right? There's been technology innovation that happened during the pandemic that we're going to see more of. We're going to continue to see innovation in technology that is going to change the way we do our jobs. So change is something that happens outside of us. It's a door that kind of feels like sometimes it's like, boom, drops right in front of us, and we're like, oh, how are we going to get through that door? Well, let me tell you how you get through that door. It's called transition. Transition is the path that will allow you to open the door and move through change. What is transition? It's a gradual psychological process that happens inside of us, right? Change happens outside, but the impacts of change are happening inside of us. It takes an indefinite amount of time. So the people who prefer a stable environment, it's probably going to take a little bit longer to get accustomed to change and to go through the process, versus people who are dynamic. Oh yeah, bring it on, change. It happens inside of us, and it happens in 3 phases. So with transition, it's based upon William Bridges' model, which there's a book of the same title. We resist transition not because we can't accept the change, but because we can't accept letting go of that piece of ourselves that we have to give up when and because the situation has changed. So when the pandemic happened and we were associated with the job and all of the things that we did before, change. We have to let go of something that we really weren't ready to let go of. So the change happens, and there are 3 phases to the transition process: endings, the neutral zone, and new beginnings. So endings, what happens in the ending? Transition starts with an ending. That means something is stopping. The old way ends and the new way begins. And it's time to determine what we need to leave behind. How often are you consciously thinking about what you need to leave behind when a change happens? It has to be intentional, right? A lot of times we just move through and we're like, let's hurry up and get to the new beginning. Let's hurry up and get to the new state. Let's get it over with. But if we follow the transition model, we acknowledge our endings, and then we go into a neutral zone. The neutral zone is a magical place. It's a period of time, the old stopped, or the old thing that we were doing stopped, but the new one hasn't started yet. We're not there yet. So it can be used, it can be a magical time if we use it to foster creativity and problem solving. I'll give you an example. So I've been doing some work with the Hilton motif in downtown Seattle. So it wasn't the Hilton motif 2 months ago. It was a Destination by Hyatt hotel. January 13th, all the Hyatt systems got shut off. A lot of the Hyatt people left. Boom, it's a Hilton, right? Oh no, we're still in a state of transition. And why? Because all of the systems have to be relearned. I was an expert on the Hyatt system, but I know nothing about the Hilton system, right? So there's all of these things that are in transition and that we have to have an open mind because it's a very frustrating place. We don't like it. We feel real uncomfortable. We just want to hurry up and be able to do our jobs easily again. So the neutral zone is where we have to take time to think about that. In ancient times, people left their villages during times of transition. They would go out into the wilderness and they would take time to live in emptiness and seek their spiritual advisors. We don't do that today because our world is so busy. Does anybody watch Yellowstone? So if you watch Yellowstone, there was an episode where Casey, this is actually a picture of mine from Montana, goes out into Montana, into the wilderness, because he's going through a time of transition. Well, they give him a little peyote, which makes his time in the neutral zone even more interesting because he has psychedelic dreams. But that's kind of a tradition, which is a native tradition. So going into the neutral zone and taking time to be in it. So if we have a growth mindset, instead of hurry up and get to the comfort place mindset, then that's where the essence of life can take place. It's in the interim spaciousness that all possibilities, creativity, and innovation can flourish, can come to life and flourish in the neutral zone. And then finally, we get to the new beginnings. So, and when we enter the new beginnings, after going through this process intentionally, we're going to be to a new beginning that we want to be in. Not the one that we just kind of followed, but the new beginning we really want to get to. And we'll have a clarity, like right now, the people at the Hilton, the team that I'm working with there, they don't have a clear sense of their role and purpose and contribution, participation. It's not clear yet because we're still going through that transition. So, transition always starts with an ending. And I think this is important. To become something else, if you want to make a change for yourself, you have to stop being what you are now. To start doing things a new way, you have to end the way you are doing them now. And to develop a new attitude or outlook, you have to let go of the old. Easier said than done, right? So let's talk about some strategies for growing through the transition process. So again, 3 phases. The first phase is ending. So I don't know if this is a good example, but Tom Brady, when he retired the first time, I'm just wondering if he really went intentionally through the transition process. Did he really understand what he needed to let go of in order to move into retirement, into a new life? Maybe not, because he went back, right? And that's what happens to a lot of people. We go back because we haven't quite let go of what we need to let go of. So with the endings, we have to sort through our losses. We're going to lose things every time we go through a change. And these are the 6 things that we lose every time we go through a change. Oops, I kind of went through that fast, but we're going to cover each of them. What you want to do is intentionally sort your losses. So we have loss of attachments, right? So I was listening to one of the speakers yesterday morning on Think Like a CFO or CEO, and he was talking about how his company, which is a technology AV company, all their people were gone when they went back to try to rehire, right? All the people were gone. A lot of their vendor relationships had vanished during the pandemic. I was listening to the director of sales and marketing from the Hyatt a couple of weeks ago at PCMA. He said they have 5 people still there from pre-pandemic out of 40, 5 out of 40. So loss of attachments, it's real. Loss of turf. I kind of go back to that system. Loss of turf is meaning something something that you identify with. I'm the systems expert. Well, I'm no longer the systems expert if there's a new system. So I'm going to have to lose that designation for a hot second until I can go through the transition and become the expert again. Loss of structure. This is a big one, right? So a lot of times when we go through change, we lose the structure that we were accustomed to. Loss of future. Maybe retirement looks different right now for some of us that went through the pandemic. Maybe our future, the way we had imagined it, we need to let go of that and reimagine it. Loss of meaning. Now, this is on a deeper level that relates to our purpose and understanding why things the way they are. It kind of goes back to those questions we asked ourselves at the beginning. How did I get here? Am I in the right place? So loss of meaning, in our current world, we have lost appreciation for the emptiness. So it's hard for us to be in the neutral zone without identifying with something. And the speaker again before me talked about purpose. So sometimes when we go through transition, especially at work, we lose our purpose. We lose our sense of meaning. Loss of control, falling out the window. I have no control. And a lot of that happens, right? It may not be falling out a window, but you may no longer have the pull you once did in your organization if you get a new leader. You may no longer have, your voice may not carry as much resonance with a group of people during a change because the people changed. So it's loss of control. So the 6 types of losses: attachments, turf, structure, future, meaning, and control. Those are the ones that you want to acknowledge, right? So we can say endings, I've acknowledged all those. Now I'm ready to go to the neutral zone, and this is where the magic happens in the neutral zone. So the first thing in the neutral zone, those people who like structure, who like the implementing side of energy, you've got to create some structure for yourself to get through the transition. You can't live without it. So in order to kind of, remember I said it's a little chaotic, it's a little, and some of us need that structure. And so creating your own structure so you have a framework for going through the transition. In the pandemic example, I would say, a lot of people who did like the LinkedIn Learning or they got this certification or that's kind of creating structure for themselves, creating a discipline to spend some time learning in the interim. Conduct a reality check. Is the change really what everybody's saying it is? What do I know about this change? So conduct a reality check means a lot of times hearsay and gossip gets a little out of control during times of change. So just conduct a reality check and ask yourself what the reality is. Appreciate what was. Again, I'll go back to the Hyatt Hilton example. Let's appreciate everything that was, and let's hang on to a lot of the good things that were happening there. And acknowledge how well it worked. And at the same time, let's move into our new reality and learn the Hilton systems and all of the way that Hilton likes to do business. Oh, and then this is the most fun. So develop your vision. If there's time that you can take in emptiness, and some of us, again, did have time during the pandemic, but develop your vision. What do you want to be? How do you want to come out in your new beginning as a result of the change that you've been through? So to do this, you have to have childlike curiosity. You explore, you wonder why. One of the ways, when I say childlike curiosity, do you remember walking along a beach or walking along a path and you pick up a pebble and you look at it and you say, oh, look at this, isn't it cool? I wonder where it came from. I wonder why it's that color. That's childlike curiosity, and we kind of lose that as we go. We don't have time to pick up rocks. We're walking, we're getting our steps in. So if we take time to develop some curiosity, and that's not just about your vision, but it's asking questions of those around you who have control over the changes that are happening. Ask questions, be curious about it. And ask questions of yourself to develop your vision. The other part of developing a vision, and especially we can do this with our teams too, right, is innovation. The definition of innovation is inventing something that doesn't exist today. I started out today saying innovation happened at a rate that was crazy in the events industry during the pandemic. Did it happen in other parts of our industry? I don't know that hotels necessarily innovated during the pandemic. I think there was a lot of survival going on. I've said this before, that the banquet event order process still in hotels is just wacky. It's so, seems like it could be done a better way. But we have to take time to innovate and invent the new way. And when we do that, a lot of times we say, oh, I'm going to think of some new ideas, and the idea starts coming. No, we can't do that because it doesn't fit into your box. Because you're judging your ideas before they, oh, I would love to do that, but no, that will never work. It won't, I don't know, I got to support myself right now. I can't do that because, so don't judge your ideas before you think about them, right? So innovative is inventing something that doesn't yet exist in a way, and brainstorm with your colleagues during change especially, right? A lot of times in the pandemic, we brainstormed ideas about how to survive, how to get more different types of business that was still out there, but did we innovate really about how we were going about doing that? So when you develop your vision, you picture it, right? So the first thing you want to do is picture it, then so that you can see it. So some people do vision boards. You can put that vision on a board. Then you write it out and focus on the what and not the how, right? Because if we focus on the how, what's going to happen? We're going to be, oh, no, we can't do that. So focus on really the what and not the how until we get to the next step in transition. The other thing is to take time and be okay with it. The neutral zone is about taking time to know. So this guy named John had a job that he loved. Well, actually, he didn't love it, but he didn't want to lose his job. He really wanted to hang on to his job. And guess what? John lost his job. And so John is in the neutral zone trying to figure out what he's going to do with his life. And what happens? John, have you applied for any jobs today? John, when are you going to get a job? He doesn't just hear this from his wife. He hears it from everybody. His friends, John, still looking for something? Oh, you're still looking for a job? What John knew after he didn't have that job that he didn't want to lose is that he didn't want to go back to that job anymore. And he didn't want to go back to any job like it. That's what John discovered by taking time that he didn't want to take, right? It was forced upon him through a layoff. But through that time, we don't allow people that empty space, right? We're like, well, what are you going to do next? How long are you going to be off? So students who take a gap year, right? Well, that must be nice. Get to take a gap year, huh? What if we took a gap year? What if we took a gap week? What if we took a gap month? So taking that time, and actually the Think Like a CEO session again that was here yesterday, one of the questions that was asked of the CEOs was, how do you find time to think, right? Because your day's so busy and your calendar's so full. What do? They have to calendar it. Or they have to set time for themselves to go away and be in isolation. So the neutral zone, it's okay. It's okay to take time, especially if you're going through a large change at work. If you're going through a system change, give yourself time in the timeline to make sure you understand the innovative opportunities that can happen with the new system. Make sure that's in the qualifications before you go buy the new system. But if it isn't, and you're still part of the implementation team, there's ways that we can do this. The next thing we want to do, so we've developed our vision, which is my favorite part, and then we're going to clarify our focus, right? So during change, when you're focused on things that are not in your control, what are you doing? You're spinning your wheels. Not going to do anybody any good. And if there's something within your control during that change process, and you're not doing anything about it, it's a missed opportunity. So what we want to do during the change process is we want to let go of those things that are not in our control, which is really hard for us to do sometimes, right? Especially depending on where our position is. If we're a leader, We want to hang on to some of those things. If we've moved up in our role, well, I still can help over here. I can still let go. And it might still be in your control, but we want to learn how to let go. And we want to take action on the things that are fully within our control in order to navigate successfully through change. So we finally get to the final step, which we've done all this work and we really haven't done anything yet. We're going to now take action. A lot of the work that we've done is we've discovered our strengths, we've gone through the transition process, we've clarified our focus, and now we're going to take action. And so a lot of times we go through that process of being introspective and say, oh, what if? Oh, what if? And then, nothing happens. So we have to make sure that action is part of the process. So a critical ingredient is getting off your butt and doing something. So not tomorrow, not today, but not next week, but today. So once you have that kind of vision, is how do you put that into action? Putting it into action requires taking time to put together the plan. So take action and be open. These are some ways that you can take action, right? So again, during the pandemic, a lot of us did these things. During a system change, maybe you know that you have a new system coming, or ChatGPT. Is anybody using ChatGPT currently? Yeah, so some people are already ahead of the curve, right? They're investigating educational opportunities. They're taking the opportunity because that's going to be a thing. Probably, I don't know how long it's going to take to catch on in our industry in particular, but it is going to be a thing. So the more we can educate ourselves and get ahead of it, then the more we can incorporate it into what we're looking for. The other thing is to conduct informational interviews. If somebody's gone through the same change that you have, ask them what worked, what didn't work. Job shadow, and of course, network. Your organization, your people are great resources to understand how to move toward your vision. So there's no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs. So Zig Ziglar, who's the big sales guru, and that's so true, right? We can't just elevator our way through change, or we can, but we may not be on the right floor when we get off the elevator. So there's no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs. So those are the strategies for thriving through transition: to sort your losses, create structure, conduct a reality check, appreciate what was, develop your vision, clarify your focus, and take action. And then you get to the new beginning that you want for yourself and for your organization, where we've entered into a full new reality. The sun is shining on us. It's looking great. We know what our role is. We know what our purpose is. We know what our contribution is. And we know what our participation is. So what we want to do to thrive is leverage our strengths, intentionally go through the transition process anytime we have a change. Pay attention to those endings, the neutral zone and new beginnings. And most of all, never stop growing, because growing is flourishing and thriving. So thanks to the Effectiveness Institute for the content that was provided, a lot of today's content. The president of Effectiveness Institute happens to be in the room right here. George, would you just say hello to everyone? Hello, hello. I'm sharing with H Leadership, and my question is, how are you going to thrive? And if you have questions for me, I'd be happy to take them. Or thoughts, anything.
Does anyone have a question?
I didn't plant any questions. Questions?
Anyone? Anyone?
Is anybody going through any changes right now?
Oh. Hold it right.
You think I need this? No.
I don't think you need it. I don't really need this, but
I'll hold it out here. At the very beginning, when you're talking about energy, how does stress play into some of these phases? Because some people get a lot of nervous energy from stress, and that impacts how you react. So how would stress play into this process?
That's a great question. So what we know about stress is it releases cortisol, and cortisol impairs our executive function. It impairs our ability to think clearly. That's one part of it, not necessarily related to energy, but we know that. that when we're stressed, our brains don't work very well. The second part of that is when it comes to energy, when we talk about where our natural energy comes from, so let's take initiating and implementing. If you have a natural tendency to initiate, then that's where you're going to go in times of stress. You're not going to have anything left to go over and implement, right? So whatever your preference is, that's what you can do during times of stress more effectively. Not effectively, but more effectively. So stress really impairs our ability to operate. And so that's why it's important to acknowledge, kind of going through the psychological transition process helps us to acknowledge our endings and taking time so that this, and easy to say, right? Because there's still work that has to get done, but understanding how to take a deep breath and be in that empty space before we move forward. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
George, do you have anything to add to that?
I just say exercise.
Yeah, that's right. Exercise. Oxygen to the brain is,
Exercise.
yep. Oxygen to the brain has proven, I mean, we walked, 40 miles a day in ancient times. So that means there was a lot of oxygen going to the brain. And so as we evolved, we know that exercise powers the brain. Yes, one question back here. I think. Well, we'll wait till Laura gives you the microphone, just because I believe this is being recorded, and they want to hear your question.
Okay. Hi, thank you for this elaborate exposition and explanation. It was really wonderful. Following up on the question on stress, if you have one person in your team that is really the stressed person and that shuts off when everything gets stressful for her, but she takes the entire room with her, do you have methods in how to turn that around?
That's a rough one. That is a very complicated question. But I think for that individual, if they're getting stressed to the point of having to leave the room and taking all of the energy with them, then they probably need to look at their energy, where they're getting it from, and something's happening to where they're not getting the energy that they need in order to sustain their workday, in order to be able to navigate stress. So I think that's a bigger issue. I don't know, does anybody have any other answers to that? That's a tough one. But I would say, and again, there's a couple of great books out there around having difficult conversations, managing difficult conversations, and really being able to approach that person to understand, does this person know that happens, that when she or he goes off and into a stressed state and takes the whole room with them? Do they know this?
Yes, they know, and I already found one step in calming down, but I don't know the next step yet.
Okay. Yeah, I think part of it is, understanding the transition process. If it is change, if there's so much coming at us all the time, then it's understanding what the source of that stress is and addressing it at the source, and then also addressing how that individual handles it. Yes, one other question over here.
Excuse me. Which, I know, who is it?
Run, Laura.
Who
Yeah,
is
of course,
it?
it's opposite ends of the.
Trying to find her.
You're getting oxygen to the brain
Yes,
right now.
I am. Here you go.
Hi, thanks
Hi.
for today. This is really great. One of the strategies for growing you mentioned was creating structure. First, is that neutral zone or actually, no, that's neutral zone. And what are some examples of that?
Okay, for instance, I'll go to the Hilton example that I gave. So we don't necessarily have a way of communicating, let's say shipping and receiving, how we handle shipping and receiving, right? Or I'm trying to think of a good example. So it's more a matter of creating your own structure within the larger group, right? So I don't have an answer for creating or how we handle shipping and handling at the hotel right now. So I'm going to have to go about creating, I can't make up an answer, right? So I'm going to have to go about creating a structure that lets me not address that, basically. So it's really more about time management is what I would say. It's more about creating structure to manage your time. So that was not a good example. So it's more about creating structure so that you know what you're going to do in the next, day or 2 or 3 or 6 weeks, however long it's going to take to get through the neutral zone. So it might be creating a checklist for yourself. It might be creating, if you don't yet know how to use the new system, it might be using a paper system or some other method of before you can fully adopt the new system. Does that help? It does. Okay. Yeah, that shipping example is a bad example because, either know it or you don't. You can't make it up.
Is there someone in the far corner that I can run to right now? I know. Get my steps in.
Thank you. I could have met you halfway, I guess. I'm wondering, is it possible to be a good leader if your strength is implementation and you are so drained by the opposite?
Idea initiation?
Yes.
That's a really good question. So at the Effectiveness Institute, we have a whole program around team dynamics and where the strengths are in a team based upon where they get their energy from and where their natural preferences are. So if you're aware, right? So if you're aware, self-aware, that you're really good at implementation or have energy for kind of maybe more analytical tasks and kind of more process decision-making, if you're aware of that, then you would make sure that there's somebody on your team that has the energy that's opposite of you. So that's what a good leader would do. And it certainly doesn't prevent anybody. There's no right way to be a good leader, I guess is what I'm saying. So you can be a good leader whether you have energy for implementing or energy for initiating. You just have to be self-aware and know that it's going to drain you to do the other one maybe, or that you can do it, but it's just not your preference. And then surround yourself with people that can strengthen you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
That's right.
I have a quick question. So I feel like a lot of these are like kind of classifying yourself and figuring out obviously where your strengths and things you could work on are. But I also just throughout the presentation am realizing that I've changed in a lot of ways. And like when you were talking about kind of thriving in a more chaotic environment, I felt like I was better at that when I was younger. But now that I'm getting older, I like more of the routine. And that could change again. And I was talking to my friend Jody here, and like even over the day, like sometimes at the beginning of the day, I'm a super extrovert and I want to talk to everybody. And like by the third day at my third conference in Vegas within 6 months, I'm feeling like I just want to sit and play with my phone. So I'm just curious how the program or how you address that, if there's like a holistic or more of like kind of a meta way to zoom out and kind of adapt to that.
Yeah, so at the Effectiveness Institute, we call rotating our iceberg, right? So we all have a preference. So you have a preference for either being social, being really around people all the time, or to kind of be less social, less expressive. So you have a preference for one of those, most likely. And so what happens is that you can rotate your iceberg to what we call, put your energy around people up front, because it's what you have to do in order to be successful in your business, for instance, right? So you can do that, but then you've got to let your iceberg rest and recharge before you go do it again. So does that answer your question? So in other words, we all have preferences, but we can do it all, right? And so we have a 4-quadrant model that's all about initiating, implementing, kind of task people, and yet we can do all of it. It's just a matter of which ones give us energy and which ones take more energy. So paying attention to that and understanding, you could manage your 3 days maybe by taking some downtime at the end of each day instead of waiting till the end. So just, if you're aware that that's something you're gonna hit a wall, boom. Does that help?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. And also, the Effectiveness Institute has a booth downstairs. If you wanted to know what your kind of preferences, it's a quick behavior style profile that's called Find Yourself. And there's a QR code that I'll leave it up here on the table. You can just take it and see where you are from a a behavior style. And there's also a booth downstairs, way downstairs. Not the second level, but the experience level. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. You guys have been a great audience. I really appreciate it.